Two Christmas Stories by Jack Kerouac. Home at Christmas. It's a Sunday afternoon in New England, just 3 days before Christmas. Ma's making the roast in the kitchen range, also tapioca pudding, so that when Sister Nin comes in from outdoors with the shovel she's been wielding in the blizzard there, are cold waves of snowy air mixing with the heat steams of tapioca over the stove. And in my mouth, I can taste whipped cream, cold from the icebox, on the hot pudding tonight. While Ma cooks, she also sits at the round kitchen table, reading the Boston American. Pa's in the parlor, playing the gospel singers of Sunday cigar smoke funnies time. I'm getting ready to take my big blizzard walk into the Massachusetts Shroud. Begins just down the end of Dirt Road Phoebe Avenue. I'm rummaging in the closet for my hockey stick, which will be my walking stick and feeling stick, to find where puddles and creeklets have disappeared under 2 feet of snow this day. I start out, down the porch steps, overshoes, wool cap, coat, corduroy pants, mittens. There are Christmas wreaths in all the windows of sweet Phoebe. No sign of GJ or Billy with the kids sliding on the park slope. No sign of them on their porch except GJ's sister in her coat, all wrapped, communing with the plicking fall of vast snows in a silence all her own, girl-like, watching it pile on the porch rail. The little rills, sadnesses, mysteries. She waves. I plod down off our cis-shoveled walk into Mrs. Quinn's unshoveled walk, where the going is deep, profound, happy. No shoveled walks all the way to Billy's, where big brother 6-foot Jack has worked in muffler with pink cheeks and white teeth, laughing. Black birds in the black cherry tree, and in the new snow breadcrumbs. Bird tweak tracks, a little dot of kitty yellow, a star blob of plop snowball against old MacArthur's wreathy front door. Oh, the clean porches of New England in the holy dry snow that's drifting across new painted planks to pile in corners over rubber doormats, sleds, overshoes. The steam in the windows, the frost, the faces looking out. And over the sandbank now and down on semi-snow-plowed Phoebe comes the great whoosh of hard storm wind from the river, cracking leafless shrubs in stick unison, throwing swirls of cold-sifted powder, pure, the freezing freshness everywhere, the sand frozen solid underneath. That night in bed, I can still see the great bulging star, white as ice, beating in the dark field of heaven, among the lesser glistening arrays. I can see its reflection in an icicle that depends from an eave above my window. I can hear my winter apple tree cracking, black limbs and frost. See the Milky Way all far and cold and crag deep in time. I smell the soft cold heat of the furnace in the cellar. Soon dawn, the rosy spread over pure snow fields, the witless winter bird with his mully feathers inward. My sleep is deep in New England wintertime night. Not long ago, Joy Abounded at Christmas by Jack Kerouac. I think the celebration of Christmas has changed within the short span of my own lifetime. Only 20 years ago, before World War II, it seemed that Christmas was still being celebrated with a naive and joyous innocence. Whereas today, you hear the expression, Christmas comes once a year like taxes. Christmas was observed all out in my Catholic French-Canadian environment in the 1930s, much as it is today in Mexico. At first, I was too young to go to midnight mass, but that was the real big event we hoped to grow up to. Until then, we'd stay in our beds pretending to be asleep till we heard the parents leaving for midnight mass, and then we'd come down and sneak a look at our toys, touching them and putting them back in place, and rush up again in the dark in gleeful pajamas, tittering when we heard them come back again, usually now with a big gang of friends, for the open house party. When we were old enough, it was thrilling to be allowed to stay up late on Christmas Eve and put on best suits and dresses and overshoes and earmuffs and walk with the adults through crunching dried snow to the bell-ringing church. Parties of people laughing down the street, bright, throbbing stars of New England winter bending over rooftops, sometimes causing long rows of icicles to shimmer as we passed. Near the church, you could hear the open choruses of Bach being sung by child choirs, mingled with the grown-up choirs, usually led by a tenor who inspired laughter more than anything else. But from the wide open door of the church poured golden light, and inside the little girls were lined up for their trumpet choruses caroling Handel. My favorite object in the church was the statue of the saint holding little Jesus in his arms. This was the statue of Saint Antoine de Padoue, but I always thought it was Saint Joseph and felt that it was quite just that I should hold him in his arms. My eyes always strayed to his statue, he who now with demure plaster countenance, holding the insubstantial child with face too small and body too doll-like, pressed cheek against the painted curls, supporting in midair lightly against his mysterious, infinite breast, the sun, downward, looking into candles. Agony, the foot of the world, where we kneeled in dark vestments of winter. All the angels and calendars and spiry altars behind him, his eyes lowered to a mystery he himself wasn't let in on. Yet, he'd go along in the belief that poor Saint Joseph was clay to the hand of God, as I thought. A humbling, self-admitting, truthful saint, with none of the vain freneticisms of the martyrs, a saint without glory, guilt, accomplishment, or Franciscan charm, a self-effacing grave and demure ghost in the arcades of Christendom, he who knew the desert stars and spat with the wise men in the back of the barn, a ranger of the manger, old hobo saint of haylofts and camel trails, my secret friend. Now in midnight mass, I gloried proudly in his new honorable position at the front of the church, standing over his family in the manger, where all eyes were turned. After mass, the open house was on. Gangs would troop back home to other houses, collectors for a Christmas organization of medieval origin and preserved by the French of Quebec and New England, called La Guignolée, and now sponsored by the Society for the Poor St. Vincent de Paul, would appear at these open houses and collect old clothes and food for the poor, and never turn down a glass of sweet red wine with the rossignol, curlier, and even join in singing in the kitchen. They always sang an old canticle of their own before leaving. The Christmas trees were always huge in those days. The presents were all laid out and opened at a given consensus. What glee I'd feel to see the clean white shirts of my adults, their flushed faces, the laughter, the bawdy joking around. Meanwhile, the avid women were in the kitchen with aprons over best dresses, getting out the tourtières, pork pies, from the icebox. Days of preparation had gone into these sumptuous and delicious pies, which are better cold than hot. Also, my mother would make immense ragoût de boulettes, pork meatball stew with carrots and potatoes, and serve that piping hot to crowds of sometimes 12 or 15 friends and relatives. Her aluminum drip-grind coffee pot made 15 large cups. Also from the icebox came bowls of freshly made, freshly cooled croûtons. French-Canadian for pâté de maison, a spread to go on good, fresh, crusty bread, liberally baked around town at several French bakeries. In the general uproar of gifts and unwinding of wrappers, it was always a delight for me to step out on the porch, or even go out on the street a ways at 1 o'clock in the morning, and listen to the silent hum of heaven diamond stars, watch the red and green windows of homes, consider the trees that seemed frozen in sudden devotion, and think over the events of another year past. Before my mind's eye was the St. Joseph of my imagination, clasping the darling little child. Perhaps too many battles have been fought on Christmas Eve since then, or maybe I'm wrong, and little children of 1957 secretly dig Christmas in their little devotional hearts. Jack Kerouac, The New York World Telegram, and Sun, December 5th, 1957. These were Jack Kerouac's Christmas memories. The first was an excerpt from a piece he wrote in December 1961 for Glamour Magazine, a prose sketch entitled Home at Christmas. Snowbound Pawtucketville days, the Lowell of his childhood. The piece subsequently appeared in Good Blonde and Others, a posthumous collection, a miscellany of his writing put out by Don Allen's Gray Fox Press in 1993. Both stories appeared as part of a limited edition, Jack Kerouac, 2 Christmas Stories, published by Redcar Press in Coventry, England, that same year. It had also appeared in 1973 in a likewise limited edition designed and printed by Ronald Gordon for the Oliphant Press, and now it's been repeated here in our little poetry channel. A very, very happy holidays to all of you, and a very, very happy New Year.